Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a Fortune Lady deck profile. So I'm really excited with this one because I have a lot of really cool tech cards in this deck to make this deck really crazy. And the thing about this deck that it didn't really have before was a really good boss monster. Like, don't get me wrong, Fortune Lady Every is a really good boss monster, but I have some really cool cards in this deck that make a awesome card in this deck. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad. Definitely check out the Patreon so you guys can check out the really cool rewards that we have for anybody who becomes a patron, and let's get straight on into it. So first up, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Fortune Lady Past. So Fortune Lady Past is a really neat card in this deck. It is a tuner monster, which is a really neat effect about this card. In every single one of your Fortune Ladies gain attack depending on what their level is, and they level manipulate all the way up to level 12, which is a really neat effect. But once per turn during your standby phase, you can increase his card's level by 1, and then you can target a Fortune Lady monster you control, banish any number of other spellcaster type monsters from your hand, field, and or graveyard, and if you do, increase or reduce that monster's level by the number of monsters banished until the end of this turn. You can only use the effect of Fortune Lady Past once per turn. That's not that big of a deal because you're only going to use it maybe once or twice to banish like 1 or 2 monsters to get into your Fortune Lady Every. So then we're going to be playing 3 copies of Fortune Lady Light. So Fortune Lady Light is a really cool card in this deck that it gains attack equal times its level times 200, and then during each of your standby phases, you can increase this card's level by 1. And then when this card is removed from the field by a card effect, you can special summon a Fortune Lady monster from your deck, which is not that big of a deal to be able to special summon, or it's a really big deal to be able to special summon cards to your side of the field with this card. So this card is definitely a 3 of. Then we play a single copy of Fortune Lady Fire. Fortune Lady Fire is basically what it does is when this card is special summoned in face-up attack position by the effect of a Fortune Lady card, you can target a card monster your opponent controls and inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's attack, and you get to destroy the monster. Then we play a single copy of Fortune Lady Wind. Fortune Lady Wind is also pretty good, but it lets you target a spell or trap your opponent controls equal to the number of Fortune Lady monsters you control and destroy them, which is a really cool effect. But then we play the best of all the Fortune Ladies, and that is Fortune Lady Water. So Fortune Lady Water is an absolutely crazy card that when on paper you look at it and it's like, but then you realize it's not a once per turn, and it's like, oh my god. But basically what this card does is when this card is special summoned while you control a face-up Fortune Lady monster, you can draw 2 cards. Now you can special summon this card as many times as you want per turn. And we have plenty of cards in the deck to be able to special summon back your copies of Fortune Lady Water, so you can just get its effect off constantly, like just over and over and over and over again to be able to get its effect off to be able to special summon it out. Then we play a single copy of Fortune Lady Dark. Fortune Lady Dark is kind of like a boss monster in this deck, that it gains attack equal times its level times 400, and then during each of your standby phases, you increase its level by 1. And then when a face-up Fortune Lady monster you control destroys a monster by battle, and since it's the graveyard, you can select and special summon a Fortune Lady monster from your graveyard. This card will actually revive your water, letting you draw 2 whenever your Fortune Lady monsters destroy a monster by battle. Then we play my little secret tech card. So we're playing 3 of the same, and then 1 extra of another monster. Now keep in mind, these 3 and this one work together. That is your only hint, is that these work together, which is a really cool card. So without further ado, we're going to let you guys guess that card. Don't forget to comment down below, tell us what you think it is, and I'm going to reveal it in 3, 2, 1. Now keep in mind, it is a monster and it can be a boss monster. So here we go. So it is, drumroll please, it is 3 copies of Silent Magician and 1 copy of Silent Magician level 8. Now, why am I playing this? Because your Fortune Ladies don't make a really big monster, and this is a spellcaster type monster. So it does synergize a lot with this deck, because all the monsters that you play are spellcasters. Basically, what Silent Magician does is it can be special summoned from your hand by tributing a spellcaster type monster and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gains 500 attack for each card in your hand, which this deck draws like crazy. This deck draws so fast and so many cards, it's ridiculous. And it has the ability that once per turn during either player's turn when a spell is activated, and you can negate the activation, and if this card is destroyed by battle or if an owner possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon a Silent Magician monster from your hand or deck, except another copy of itself, ignoring its summoning conditions. That's why you play the single copy of Silent Magician level 8, is because you can special summon it from your deck, if your copy of or hand if your Silent Magician is destroyed. Now, it is a little bit of a brick, but you can get rid of it in a lot of different ways if you do hard draw it. Now, this is not mandatory for a Fortune Lady deck. You can drop this and play the Bamboo Sword engine if you want to go that way instead. By playing the 3 Cursed Bamboo Swords, 3 copies of Golden Bamboo Sword, and a Broken Bamboo Sword, if you want to go that route, so you can draw more cards faster, but I really like playing the Silent Magician. It just adds a little bit more of a boss monster aspect. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. Also, side note, you could drop these and play 2 Nibiru's and 2 Ash Blossoms if you want to go that route and you want to go a little bit more budget, because I know that the Silent Magicians are a little expensive. I don't know how much they're sitting at right now, but they can be up there in expense. They should reprint that card. But we're then playing for the spells. We're playing a single copy of Monster Reborn because you can bring back the Fortune Lady Water and then instantly get that draw 2. 1 copy of Spellbook of Secrets to search out our Spellbooks of Knowledge. The Spellbooks of Knowledge are really helpful in this deck because you get to send a card, send either a spellcaster monster you control or another spellbook card from your hand or field to the graveyard, and then you get to draw 2 cards, which is really cool, and you can only activate 1 Spellbook of Knowledge per turn. Now, I do have another tech card, guys, but we're not going to play that Guess That card with this one. And then there's a single copy of Magicalized Fusion. Now, the reason I'm playing Magicalized Fusion in this deck is another boss monster in the extra deck, which is Quintet Magician. This deck does draw a lot, but it also sends a lot of your monsters to the graveyard quickly. So Quintet Magician can be a backup boss monster, with it having a 4,500 attack points and 4,500 defense points, and it takes 5 spellcasters, monsters with different names to fusion summon this card. And if this card is fusion summoned with 5 spellcasters with different names, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls, and this face-up card cannot be tributed nor used as fusion material, and it also cannot be destroyed by card effects. This card is insane when you can get it on the field, and it just helps you OTK your opponent so fast, and it's so hard to out because they can't even kaiju it. And they can't Nibiru it either, because it can't be tributed. Then we play 2 copies of Future's Fortune. Future Fortune lets you remove and play a Fortune Lady monster and return it to the graveyard, and then you get to draw 2 cards, which really helps out. We play 3 copies of Fortune Lady Calling. Fortune Lady Calling is an interesting card in this deck, because what Fortune Lady Calling does is if you control a Fortune Lady monster, special summon a Fortune Lady monster from your deck with a different name from the cards you control, and for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Synchro monsters, which is not that big of a deal because the majority of the stuff we're playing in the extra deck is Synchro monsters. It's not a big deal at all. And you're not going to have the other card that I play in this deck with this card in your hand at the same time normally. Then we play 3 copies of Future Vision. Future Vision is really cool and is a card that you want to get to as quickly as possible, because when it's activated, you get to add a Fortune Lady card from your deck to your hand. And then once per turn, if a card you control is banished by a card effect, except during the damage step, you can activate this card effect. This turn, monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects, even if they leave the field. And then even if this card leaves the field, then once per turn, if a card your opponent controls is banished by a card effect, except during the damage step, you can make the next battle damage you take become 0, which is really cool because you can just make it so that you don't take battle damage. Then we play 3 copies of Future Vision. Future Vision, when a monster is normal summoned, you remove it from play, and then during the next phase, the controller who summoned that monster return it to the field in face of attack position, which comes in really handy because it counts as a special summon, which triggers our Fortune Lady Water, which is really neat if you do normal summon that Fortune Lady Water. Then we play 3 copies of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion comes in really handy because if you don't have the Fortune Lady Calling, which you do have 6 ways to get into it, which is, I mean, it's not that big of a deal because it does have that restriction, but we can activate and summon our Thousand Eyes and Millennium Eyes to be able to gobble up monsters and, stop our opponent from doing stuff. That's kind of like our backup plan if you want to go in for that card. And then we play 3 copies of Called by the Grave as well, because you just don't want to deal with hand traps in this deck, because you're drawing so much and it's so pivotal for you to draw on this deck. Now, if you don't want to play the instant fusions because you feel like you're running into some problems, I did have a alternative for that. You can play like Upstart, a copy of Pot of Desires, and you can play another draw card in this deck if you want to play something else in this deck, like Pot of Extravagance. I wouldn't recommend Pot of Extravagance in this deck because Pot of Extravagance is A, going to shoot the cost of the deck way up, and B, it is also going to make it where you're going to banish certain key cards that you need in your extra deck that we're only playing one of in the extra deck. But it is an option if you want to go that route. So that's it for all of the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps, which we actually do play 2 traps. So for the 2 traps, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Fortune Lady Rewind. So Fortune Lady Rewind, it lets you target any number of your banished Fortune Lady monsters with different names, and then you special summon them, but shuffle them into the deck during the end phase. Then you can only activate 1 Fortune Lady Rewind per turn, which is not that big of a deal because you're only ever going to draw into like 1 at a time anyways, because we played as a 2 of. But this card is a really crazy card in the deck, but that is it for the main deck. For the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Fortune Lady Every. Fortune Lady Every is a cool boss monster in this deck that basically gains attack and defense equal to its level times 400. So it automatically comes out with 4, 8, 16, 24, 2,800 attack points, which is pretty cool. And then once returned during your standby phase, you can increase its level by 1. And then you can banish 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. And then during your opponent's next end phase, if this card's in the graveyard, you can banish another spellcaster type monster from your graveyard and special summon this card. So it's constantly coming back, which is really cool. Trishula, because it surprises your opponent and it's really easy to go into with a single copy of Fortune Lady Past and maybe a copy of 2 copies of Water. This card's really crazy to go into. 1 copy of Crystal Wing, because you can actually go Fortune Lady Every and Fortune Lady Past and go into Crystal Wing, which is really easy to go into. Beals, because Beals. Beals is really easy to go into because Fortune Lady Past is a dark monster. It's a dark tuner, so you actually use this to go into Beals, which is pretty cool, and it's really easy to go into, like, again, Fortune Lady Every and your Beals, or your copy of Past. Black Rose, because you can blow board with it, and F.A. Dawn Dragster, because it's a negate for spells and traps, which is pretty cool. For our fusion monsters, we're playing a single copy of Quintet Magician. You don't go into it all that often, but it is a boss monster, and it's one of those cards that late game, if you do top deck that copy of Quintet, or the Magical Eyes Fusion, you're going to go for Quintet, and you're going to OTK your opponent. 1 copy of Thousand Eyes and 1 copy of Millenniumizer Strict. These cards are really good for being able to stop your opponent from doing things. Broil Sword just to OTK. Avermax just to be able to help OTK and summon it on the field. As long as you don't activate Fortune Lady Calling the same turn you summon these, it's fine. 1 copy of Unicorn to be able to bounce stuff. Phoenix to be able to pop the spells that you might need to pop. And 1 copy of Link Rebo, because sometimes you just need the Link Rebo with the copy of your Fortune Lady Light, or a copy of your Thousand Eyes. It just depends on what you're going for. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a really, really neat deck. I highly recommend that you guys give this deck a try. It is super fun to be able to play around with, and it just kind of lets you draw as much as you can and as many resources you can. I actually did use the Miku mat for this because I feel like Fortune Lady Every actually looks like Miku's twin, so I just used that mat for this. So anyways, guys, this is Dark Armed Duels. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think of this video down in the comments down below. Hit that bell down there so you can become part of the notification squad. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See you around, guys.